Hey everybody, it's Paul.
And Shannon.
And there's Simon.
And Simon.
So this is actually a rare event.
Yeah.
Shannon is sitting on the couch right next to Simon. Usually that does not happen. And Simon's actually laying on this fuzzy Sherpa blanket.
Simon's not a very cuddly cat normally, so this is incredibly unusual that he snuggled up here.
Yeah.
He's like, well, tell the people the truth. To be honest, I was here first, and you came and sat next to me. I just didn't leave because I'm lazy.
Shannon the invader.
Yeah. So, we're just going to vlog a little bit today. Guess what? Good news.
What?
Paul's cooking for you guys.
Yes, I am going to cook
camera.
For you guys.
Unfortunately, you don't get to taste it. But that's good for me, because then there's more for us. So Paul is going to make his famous homemade potato soup today, and he's going to show you guys some of that, which is pretty awesome, because his soup is delicious, and we all love it. And it's pretty funny, we have one kid hiding in the kitchen right now, because he's afraid the camera is going to turn and be on him, so he's like totally hiding, which is pretty hilarious. But anyway, Paul is going to run to the store and get a couple ingredients he needs for the soup, and I'm going to go work on some video editing, and then we'll kind of film and show you the soup making process.
Yes, we will. All right, Shannon gave us a great introduction, and yeah, I'm going to cook potato soup today. It's one of my favorite meals to cook because it takes some very simple ingredients and simple techniques and a little bit of patience and turns them into something that the entire family really likes. So let me show you what I've got here. All right, so we have potatoes, naturally. So I'm gonna make a big batch of soup, which is actually going to provide 3, maybe 4 complete meals for 4 people, 4 adults. So that's 15 pounds of white potatoes right there. I'm going to use somewhere between 10 and 15 pounds, just depending on how they break down. I have 2 pounds of bacon. I have 2 medium onions. I have a quart of half and half. I have, 1 quart of chicken stock. Chicken broth works also. And then I have a big pot. This is one of my favorite cooking pieces right here. I've had this basically as long as Shannon and I have been married. It's a copper bottom Revereware pot. You can't see the emblem. There it is. It's coming into view now. Made in America. They don't make them in America anymore. Which is a shame, because this is an awesome heavy-duty stock pot. You may see an empty pot, but I see potential. Potential for greatness. And potential for potato soup. Time to cut the potatoes now. So between peeling the potatoes and chopping the potatoes up to put in the soup, that part takes probably the longest. So what I do is I chop the potatoes in half, so you have half a potato, and then I slice it in thirds, like that. Oops, sorry. I'm holding the camera up like chest high. And yes, this is my Williams-Sonoma Halloween apron, for those of you watching, so I don't mess up my cool Boba Fett shirt. And then you just chop your potato. And I actually have a penny right here. I'll put that down. Where's my penny at? I'm trying to figure out how to do this to film so you can see the stuff. There it is. All right, so you can see my potato is a little bit bigger than the penny. And it's about that thick. So that's gonna be basically the size of all my potato chunks. And those are gonna go in the big pot of potential over here. Now, like the little chunks that you get like this, those are actually going to dissolve as we boil the potatoes, and they are going to give the soup a nice mashed potato-y consistency. So anyway, so I have 10 pounds of potatoes peeled, and so I have a lot of this to do. I've had lots of practice of this over the years, so I can kind of go through this pretty quick, and I actually enjoy doing it a lot. It's actually a lot of fun. But if you have little helpers in the kitchen, peeling potatoes and this job is a great thing to do. And if you practice enough, you really hone your knife skills. I just don't practice enough with a knife to really be quick and good at it. So I probably have some really bad techniques, so you may not want to copy what I'm doing. But anyway, it's good practice. there is our big pot of potatoes. For those of you who are curious, that pot is a 10-quart pot. I don't know if you could see that when I showed you the label underneath. Anyway, so that's 10 pounds of potatoes chopped up, like I showed you, and it's covered by about 1.5 to 2 inches of water. That's going to take about an hour to get to a nice boil and then get to the consistency that I need. So I have those on a high heat right now. I'm going to be doing some other stuff in the kitchen, chopping up some other stuff for the soup, but I'm going to keep an eye on that because once that comes to a boil, it can boil over pretty quick. So I've got to be ready to turn the heat down once it comes to a boil and then just let it simmer for probably half an hour or so. Next up is going to be our bacon. So this is exactly how the bacon came out of one of these packages right here. I just cut it open, pulled it out, laid it on my cutting board. I'm going to cut this in half just so it's a little bit easier to work with. Set that half aside. Yeah, I see that's on my counter. I'll clean that in just a second. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this in about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch strips. So this bacon's been sitting out and it's a little bit closer to room temperature than refrigerated right now, which is fine because I'm about to throw it in a skillet. That's going to help it cook, it being that temperature, but it gets a little bit stringier, so it's a little bit more difficult to cut. So I'm just going to cut this, like I said, in 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. I don't know if you'd call this slices or chunks or what you would call this, but as this cooks, I'm going to stir it around with some tongs, which will help it break apart, and this is going to be the perfect size bacon for the soup. All right, now we are going to take our bacon over and we're going to put it into our pan, which has been heating up over here on the stove. Normally, I would just hold my cutting board full of bacon and dump it into the pan, but because I'm holding the camera with this hand, I'm going to use my trusty tongs, which Shannon just loves. If you've watched any of our toy videos where we open the Shopkins sets and we get the tongs, Shannon always loves playing with the tongs. So it's become a joke in the house whenever I use the tongs. So that's another benefit of cutting the bacon this way, is you can get an entire pound of bacon into a medium-sized skillet. All right, so there we go. 1 full pound of bacon in there. We're gonna let that cook, let it get nice and crispy. We'll keep stirring it, but in the meantime, while this cooks, I'm gonna go and open up every window in the house so that it doesn't smell like bacon, and I have to chop up that other pound of bacon. The last thing we have to chop is gonna be our onion, so I'm gonna do that while our bacon is over there sizzling. You might actually be able to hear it in the background, and that's why I'm wearing this apron, because when you cook bacon, it spits at you sometimes. And I didn't want it getting on my Boba Fett shirt, because I'm protective of that shirt. All right, so I like to cut an onion this way. I know there's all kinds of different ways to do it. Chop that side off, so I have a decent flat surface to work with. That's pretty much what you're going for. You want your onions to be somewhat uniform in size. See, like that thing, that just doesn't work. I'd be disqualified from MasterChef for that. So that's why I've got to chop it up smaller. You want basically similar sized onion pieces because that way they will cook uniformly. Our bacon is simmering away. That's our first pan of bacon there. I'm actually gonna make another one right after that one gets finished. And our soup is starting to boil just a little bit. So I need to keep an eye on that, make sure that doesn't bubble over. It has happened more than a few times, and that is a mess. Speaking of a mess, kind of now a lot of things wind down as far as the prep stuff goes. So I'm gonna start cleaning up some of our stuff. All I have is our bowl of onions, which we'll get to in a little bit, and my other thing of bacon. So if you've watched our other vlogs and you've seen our YouTube room and our front room, it might sound funny coming from me, but I like to really try and clean as I go when I'm cooking. It's just some random stuff here because I find it difficult to cook with a mess, and soup is a great thing for me, at least, to cook because there is a lot of downtime and it gives me an opportunity just to kind of clean up as I go. And then that way, once it's done, Nice and easy. So our bacon is getting nice and crispy there. That's looking about done. Let me give that a quick stir. I can't get the camera too close because there's a lot of like bacon grease coming off of there, and that'll gum up the lens. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's nice and crispy bacon. That's what you want, because once you put it in the soup, it's going to soften up a little bit, and you don't want your bacon soggy. Soggy bacon is sad bacon. Say it with me. Soggy bacon is sad bacon. Crispy bacon is happy bacon. I'm going to move this bacon into a bowl so I can get my other pound of bacon on to crisp up. So I'm using a slotted spoon here, and you don't have to get all the grease off the bacon. It doesn't have to be drained or dried or anything. I just want to get most of the grease out of it. But some can get over in your bowl. That's not a problem, because we're actually going to season the soup with some of the bacon fat that has rendered off here. So you need to do this step, number one, to get your bacon ready to put in the soup and separate it from the bacon fat. But if you're going to cook multiple batches of bacon like I am, you're going to need to do something with this grease. So I always keep a couple of extra spaghetti jars that are empty underneath my sink. And if you have a funnel handy, it makes it real quick and simple. You can just dump it in there and leave it on the counter to cool. And that's an easy way to store it for disposal. If you save it, well, I don't really have any advice for you because I don't save bacon grease. I know that a lot of cooks do. I just kind of use it while it's fresh. Sometimes if I'm doing something with breakfast in the morning, I'll use some of the bacon fat to cook then, but I don't save bacon fat. But I know that a lot of people do. I just don't have any tips or anything for how to save it. So if you have a tip for me on that, you can leave that in the comments below, because I kind of would like to know. I don't know if there's any real big benefits to it, but I know that a lot of cooks do it, and so I probably should learn a little bit more about it. So looks like I've got everything out of there I'm going to get out of there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to drain that and put the next pound of bacon in. So here our potatoes are boiling pretty heavy. That's what you want, but all this foam on the top, that can easily start to bubble out, and this can go from boiling the way you want to a mess in about 30 seconds flat. So now that we've got it boiling the way we want, I'm going to turn the heat from a high heat to a medium heat. Basically what I want to do is I just want to get it to the point where it's still boiling, but not as hot and heavy, just because I don't want it to boil over and basically cause a mess. But we do need to have it boil for a good probably 20-30 minutes to get the potatoes to a nice consistency. We're just playing the waiting game now. I'm waiting for my potatoes to get done and for that second batch of bacon to get done. I figured I'd just talk about a few things with making this. What you're going for in terms of consistency for the potatoes, or at least what I'm going for, is a potato, one of our larger potato chunks. You don't want to test the smaller ones because they'll be more done. But I get a larger chunk against the side of my pot with my spoon, and I just press into it. I can't hold the camera like right over the pan or the pot, because that steam will just fog the lens up. Let's see, I'll do it over there. There we go. So I just cut that potato right there a little bit. You're looking to feel kind of the give of it. I'm looking for a potato that is about the consistency of a soft baked potato. That's what I want. So if I get something that's like a mashed potato, that's too far, for me at least. Still good soup, but it just tastes different. The bacon, one of the side benefits of chopping it up like this, other than being able to fit a full pound in a pan at once, is nobody comes and eats full pieces of bacon. Like, I've never had anybody come into the kitchen and grab a handful of this bacon and eat it. But whenever I used to make it in strips and then crumble it afterwards, which, by the way, that's a fine way to do it, everybody always would come and eat strips of bacon. In fact, I would eat strips of bacon. So I'd end up having to cook a lot more bacon. So anyway, everybody has bacon thieves in their house. That's just a universal fact. If you're going to cook bacon, people are going to come eat it. So be aware of that. Plan for that. If you're going to make this soup and you're going to do the strips of bacon, then crumble them, plan to make extra bacon. So I think we're getting just about done. So it's about time to move on to the next step. Our next step is going to be to make the broth. So I've taken, I think this is a 2-quart saucepan. I've put 5 tablespoons of our bacon fat from our second pan in there. I just drained the bacon out, or I moved the bacon over to our little bowl here, and that's the pan right there. So we've got some little pan goodies in there. It's little bits of bacon in our saucepan, and I've had the fire on that for just a minute, so it's warming up. We're going to take our bowl of onions, and we're just going to dump the whole thing right in there. Now that's a lot of onions, but I find that they add a lot of flavor. Maybe too many for you. Everything about this soup really is kind of to your preference. I've just found what works for me and works for our family. And another little tip and little thing, all of my measurements are pretty big. I'm making a big batch of soup because this whole process from beginning to end takes about 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer. So I like to make a big batch and then eat for leftovers, you know, as opposed to trying to make this fresh all the time, because everybody in the house likes it. The kids and Shannon like it a lot more than I do. I actually like chicken soup a whole lot better, but nobody else does. So I like making this because everybody likes it, but at the same time, it just takes so long. I don't make it very often. So when I do, I want to make a whole bunch. So you want to stir your onions up, and then we're just going to let them kind of cook down for a little bit until they turn translucent. Our onions look just about where I want them. They have gotten soft and they're starting to turn clear. So now it's time to add our bacon in here. Now I have saved out a couple of teaspoons of onions and of bacon. Just so you know, we're going to use that at the very, very end. I'll show you a little trick that you can do. It's totally optional. But so I have set aside just a little tiny bit of bacon and a couple of, little bit of onion chunks. So you want to stir your bacon and your onions up like that. Let them cook for a minute or two together. While your onions and bacon are cooking, we can work on our potatoes. I feel like everything's happening at once here, and it usually works out this way. There's long periods of time where nothing happens and everything happens all at once. So I've drained most of my potatoes into there. Actually, I've drained all my potatoes, but some of them are still in the pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a serving spoon to get the things back out of the strainer into the pot. I've found through experience, if I just grab the strainer like this and try and dump it into the pot, I lose a good couple of potatoes. So we don't want that. I've worked too hard for them. Use a serving spoon, take your time, saves potatoes. Woo! Told you I feel like everything's happening at once. I just went to pick up a spoon to move potatoes, and now I've got to handle my onions and bacon. So we are going to need our chicken broth or chicken stock. Once again, I'm using chicken stock. You can use chicken broth. They're basically interchangeable. This is just what I happen to buy at Costco, and I really like it. So you just dump your entire quart in here, and we're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes, which will give us time to get our potatoes in order and back on the stove. So you just dump the entire quart in. Now, another note for you is everything that I'm using has salt in it. So there's salt in the chicken stock. There's obviously a lot of salt in the bacon. So I'm not adding salt to anything at this point, but I will be adding salt pretty soon. So let's see. You just want to give that a stir and let that cook for a couple of minutes. Right, this is not how I normally do this. I have my strained potatoes on my island and my potato pot next to it. Usually I would just do all this at the sink, but I really wanted to show you the potatoes and how they kind of turned out. I think this will really kind of give you a visual of what we're looking for in case my baked potato description didn't work. So like when I dig into this, they're completely soft and yield, and look like some of the smaller chunks have dissolved or are starting to. The larger chunks have soft edges all around, and when you put them in there, they just kind of smush. So it's really, really a nice texture. Our potatoes have been transferred over. They are on the stove. Here's our pot of the start of the broth. So I've never done this while holding a camera before. I hope this works. So I'm going to dump this entire saucepan of chicken broth, bacon, and onions in here. And you want to do that nice and slow, otherwise it will splash all out. And we're going to need to get a spatula and scrape that out because I don't want to lose any of that. So that's that. Then we're going to take our trusty quart of half and half. I never said that this was heart healthy. Shake it up real good. Unscrew it. Pop your little safety tab off to make sure nobody's messed with it. Very important. And then we're going to dump, oh yeah, the entire quart of that in there. And we're hoping it's going to cover the potatoes. All right, not quite. We have Mount Bacon sticking out of our half and half. Now, to how many people does that sound like heaven? Mount Bacon sticking out of half and half. Before we give that a stir, let's go ahead and add some salt and pepper. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of salt to start with. I said to start with. That's a lot of potatoes in there that need seasoning, so it does require quite a bit of salt, at least for my family again. Maybe your family is different. We'll use our tongs to stir, just because we've used them all along so far. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper in here, but I don't have that out on the counter, and I need to go grab that. So you want to give this a stir, and see, as I mushed it down, that broth is the perfect amount. It covered all of our potatoes. Yeah, there we go. So if you need to add a little bit more liquid to yours, I recommend adding a mixture of milk and water, probably 3 parts milk, 1 part water. But I have gone with extra chicken broth before. I've gone with extra half and half. It's kind of up to you, but I like doing the half and half the chicken broth to use my base for stock, and then doing mostly milk and a little bit of water as secondary if needed. Obviously, if you're doing a lot more potatoes, you're just going to want to use extra half and half in chicken stock. Right, there's our soup. I've got about half a teaspoon of pepper in there, finely ground black pepper. And like I said, we started with a tablespoon of salt. We're going to taste that in just a little bit and see what we've got going on. I'm going to keep my pan of bacon grease back there until we're done with the soup, because I may need to add just a little bit more of that for flavor. That's an add to flavor kind of thing. Like I said, I started off with 5 tablespoons when I cooked the onions and bacon in that pan. And my bacon was not drained like really well. Like I didn't put it on a paper towel or anything to drain. I just took it with a slotted spoon and took it and put it in that bowl. So you can see that there is still just a little bit of grease in the bottom of that. And there was some on the bacon. So you're going to get some more flavoring in there from that. So I have this on a medium heat. We're going to let that simmer for about half an hour. It's going to take a lot less time to come to a boil. And once this does come to a boil, you have to reduce it to a low heat, because with that cream in there, this will bubble out over the top very quickly, and that'll cause a big mess, and it burns. So anyway, now we just kind of play the waiting game, and we just kind of babysit the soup while it simmers. There it is, guys. So it's been simmering for a little while. I've turned the heat way down because your potatoes will sink to the bottom of your pot and they'll burn there. So you want to keep your heat low after it starts boiling and stir often. And it has this nice creamy texture to it. I actually added in maybe another tablespoon of the bacon drippings from our pan over there. I also added in probably another half a teaspoon of pepper, so we're up to about a full teaspoon of pepper. Salt was perfect the way that it was, and we are just about done here. I'll show you the finished product.
Okay, so I don't know everything Paul has told you because I was upstairs locked away in my dungeon of an office working.
But I'm slaving away over a hot potato-filled stove here.
Yeah, you actually have sweat on your upper lip. You've been working hard.
Check out my apron. They've seen little parts of it. So this is my Halloween apron. This is from... I hardly ever get to wear it.
Yeah, it came out at Halloween time, but it's just like all different skeletons and skulls and stuff. It's
pretty cool, isn't it?
It is pretty cool.
And it protects my Boba Fett shirt.
This is the most important thing right here. Look at that giant pot of the most glorious stuff
Look at how pretty
in the
that
world.
Is.
Beautiful. That's dinner right there. Oh, we should do a what's for dinner.
We should.
We'll have to add that because that is too beautiful to not share.
Okay.
So anyway.
So I haven't said it yet, but in case anybody has any questions about this particular recipe or any of the techniques that I've used in this video, please leave those in the comments and I will be sure and respond to them either in the comments or in another video. So you might have to watch to see the answer. Hey, just fair warning.
That's cool.
On that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed doing this cook with me. Leave a comment and also let me know if there's like another dish that you would like me to do.
Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
This was kind of an impromptu one. I've been promising to make potato soup for a while and haven't made it for a long time. So I kind of owed it to the family to do it. So
he's awesome, isn't he?
I figured it would make a good video.
He's a keeper.
Yeah.
All right. So I am so sorry that you guys cannot come enjoy this with us.
No, you're not. It's more for us.
I'm sorry that they can't taste it, but yeah, it is more for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, I guess that is going to be the end of today's vlog.
That will do it.
We will see you next time.